There is no lower human being on this earth than Chimaev. You became best friends with a murderer, and you took G-Wagons. Like, you're not a man, dude. You shouldn't be allowed in this country, but I'll fight you. I'll fight you, don't worry.
What happened? Before you guys used to train together and everything, what happened?
So Chimaev would come to the gym, I know there's a clip, like, oh, me, like, being sarcastic, you're the best, you're the best. Like, he would just go and ragdoll low-level pro. Chimaev's just a bully, man. And I mean, even like the crypto scam, if you have an open, honest opinion on Chimaev, you're looking at a man that lacks all other things.
Bro, you think your dad beat the shit out of you?
Against Khamzat Chimaev. You know why? And I don't know if this counts as MMA math. 1 takedown, 2 takedowns, 3 takedowns, 4 takedowns, 5 takedowns. I think that might have been the 6 takedowns, 7 takedowns, 8 takedowns. Some of those might have been the same takedown. But he has at least 7 takedowns on our boy Sean Strickland, okay? You want to know what Khamzat did to Dricus Du Plessis?
Alright, so Sean Strickland's wrestling struggles against Dricus Du Plessis reveal everything we need to know about his so-called fighter credentials, especially when facing someone with Khamzat Chimaev's grappling superiority. Consider this fundamental reality. If Du Plessis managed multiple takedowns against Strickland, and Chimaev subsequently dominated Du Plessis on the mat with complete control, the mathematical equation becomes undeniable. Strickland's takedown defense, regardless of his confidence, faces an opponent operating at an entirely different level of technical proficiency. This breakdown exposes more than fighting mechanics. It validates Chimaev's assessment that Strickland represents subpar competition when elite-level grappling enters the equation. The stage is set for a physically punishing encounter where verbal provocations meet proven octagon dominance.
He's got too much of a pressure-heavy style, and he's also a hyper-elite athlete on top of it. Fluffy doesn't have the athleticism. He's got the dog, he's got the pressure, he's got the grit. But Khamzat actually has some slick stand-up skills. He's got knockout power in his hands. He's got nasty wrestling, next-level wrestling chops. I think we're going to see Sean Strickland on his back for a lot of this fight. And I think Khamzat is probably going to wear him down with some ground and pound. As much as we hope for Sean Strickland to go out and make it competitive,
Chimaev emerges as an unstoppable juggernaut through this analysis, showcasing relentless pressure that crashes over opponents in devastating waves, combined with superior athleticism that enables techniques beyond most fighters' capabilities. His refined striking receives less recognition than deserved, while his elite wrestling places him in an exclusive category of dominance. Predictions of Strickland spending significant time on his back, absorbing systematic ground punishment, completely demolish any claims of Chimaev being inferior competition. This reveals a core skills mismatch that transcends mental toughness or determination. For someone like Strickland, whose identity centers on perseverance and pushing through adversity, the prospect of methodical breakdown over 5 rounds represents more than tactical concern. It constitutes a fundamental assault on his competitive essence.
Jersey folk, booing, okay?
But how does the fight go? You know, the press conferences and stuff are another thing. How will the fight go? It looks like a lot of people are just going with Khamzat automatically, but we cannot count out Strickland. I'm definitely not counting him out again. I made a breakdown about this a few years ago, about how Strickland's chances against Khamzat and how he is probably the most difficult fight in the division for him. I'm going back to that same opinion that I once had, because the version that just fought Fluffy Hernandez might be more difficult than people expect. He has good takedown defense, he has good get-ups, very good striking. His jab could be a problem for Khamzat, but the thing is Khamzat's wrestling just too strong? Just having good takedown defense is not enough. This is probably the best wrestler in the entire UFC.
However, dismissing Strickland entirely would be premature, as this perspective challenges the inferior fighter narrative by emphasizing frequently overlooked attributes that don't generate highlight reels. His takedown defense exceeds public perception, his recovery skills when grounded prove effective, and his jab could genuinely problematize Chimaev's approach if established early and maintained consistently. This isn't misplaced optimism or blind allegiance, but recognition that Strickland's unorthodox methodology creates legitimate difficulties for opponents, disrupting game plans and generating frustration. The critical question becomes whether his specific skill set can overcome arguably the UFC's premier wrestler. This represents a genuine stylistic and personality clash, the type of matchup that generates endless debate among fight enthusiasts.
As long as the fight's standing, I think Strickland is going to have some advantages there. Keep the jab on him, line up the 1-2s, and Khamzat's probably going to throw some front kicks, some jabs himself, but the wrestling is definitely the path to victory for Khamzat, and he might win that way. We'll see. I'm hoping for a very good fight here, because the build-up is going to be really big. Hopefully the fight delivers, and for sure what's going to be brought up is that legendary training session where Strickland didn't have much of a chance against Khamzat in training. That's what they made it seem like, and then Strickland comes out after and says, no, I made this guy quit, and I have people who could back me up on that. I made this guy quit in the training room, and Khamzat's making it seem like he was nothing in training, so we get to find out.
The personal animosity traces back to their legendary training session, now embedded in MMA mythology, where technical analysis gives way to genuine emotional warfare. While understanding Strickland's striking advantages and Chimav's grappling path remains crucial for fight prediction, the real combustion stems from Strickland's declaration, "I made this guy quit, and I have witnesses." This transcends Octagon competition with referees and regulations, claiming mental and spiritual dominance in private settings without observation. Strickland's public challenge to Chimav's pride and competitive spirit represents an extremely personal attack, surpassing typical promotional tactics. He's suggesting Chimav lacks heart, that when circumstances became truly difficult without cameras present, he surrendered. This accusation proves more damaging than simply questioning fighting ability, because technique improves through training, but questioning someone's fundamental warrior spirit attacks their very identity.
You know, who knows? Maybe Whitaker was going to be the one to gas Tiger. We don't know, but again, that's the point. We know for a fact Khamzat has struggled when he's trying to grapple fuck you rounds 2, 3, and 4, and you know what I mean? We've seen that before, right? And on the feet, man, I'm telling you, if Strickland can survive that early onslaught. If he can survive that early onslaught, he starts walking Khamzat down, putting him on the back foot, just popping the jab, walking him down. He doesn't have the reactive takedowns to duck right underneath that jab to get to the shot. We just haven't seen that before.
Examining Chimav's potential weaknesses reveals strategic opportunities for Strickland, particularly regarding cardio during extended grappling exchanges, providing a tactical blueprint that isn't immediately obvious. The analysis suggests surviving Chimav's initial assault could enable Strickland to pressure him in later rounds, forcing backward movement while consistently landing jabs and imposing his preferred fighting style. This breakdown contradicts the one-dimensional fighter characterization, instead outlining a legitimate victory path built on endurance and boxing fundamentals, an old-school approach sometimes overlooked in today's explosive athlete era. The inferior fighter insult transforms into a strategic challenge, completely reversing the narrative and implying Chimav's perceived dominance contains exploitable weaknesses that a smart, durable fighter can capitalize on. Victory becomes less about pure talent and more about game plan imposition over 25 minutes.
All of a sudden, he has to rely on his striking game, and his striking game's bad. It's really, really bad. But again, that's kind of the thing here, is that if he can just take down Strickland at the start of every single round and control him, then none of this matters.
But we're finally getting some big matchups. Khamzat Chimaev versus Sean Strickland was announced for UFC 328. That's a fight that I want to see. That's a fight that everybody wants to see. Chimaev versus Strickland, that's one of the best fights the UFC has made in a long time. That is going to be one of the biggest fights in UFC.
Chimaev's striking receives harsh criticism here, described as genuinely poor, providing direct counter-evidence to any inferior fighter accusations Strickland might face from Chimaev's camp. This highlights a critical vulnerability, suggesting Chimaev must rely entirely on grappling control because a pure striking contest heavily favors Strickland's advantages. More importantly, this positions their encounter as one of UFC history's biggest fights, not necessarily due to rankings or title implications, but because of narrative magnitude and dramatic buildup. The beautiful irony emerges as technical deficiencies in Chimaev's striking game become overshadowed by the matchup's sheer scale. This magnitude stems largely from personal animosity and inflammatory remarks, including terrorist accusations, making the pre-fight buildup equally compelling as the actual contest. Sometimes external drama proves as significant as Octagon action.
Of course, the story is about Strickland tapping 17 times in sparring. It's not sparring, guys. Listen, Hernandez is someone who capitalizes off people when they're starting to fatigue. That's when you start to see his wrestling, his very basic wrestling, start to excel. Now, Khamzat takes people down not when they fatigue, but when they're fresh. When they're fresh at the most peak they'll ever be via endurance, everything. At the very start of the round, Khamzat goes there and asserts his dominance. And I swear, I don't think he's going to pipe up at all. I actually think we're going to see a more mellow side of him. All this terrorist talk, you're a terrorist, or you're all this racist talk, oh my god, your religion is this.
Strickland's rhetoric enters truly inflammatory territory through open discussion of terrorist and racist comments targeting Chimaev's religious and ethnic background specifically. Commentary suggesting Strickland might appear more restrained face-to-face, despite his extreme online persona where he posts absolutely wild content, adds fascinating intrigue to the personal dynamic we've examined. This suggests calculated strategy where extreme language provokes from safe distances behind phones or computers, but potentially moderates when actual physical confrontation becomes imminent when standing across from Chimaev with cameras rolling. This transcends fighting into sophisticated psychological warfare, exploiting deeply sensitive religious, ethnic, and identity issues to penetrate Chimaev's mental state and create maximum tension. Whether Strickland genuinely believes his statements or performs character work becomes irrelevant because damage occurs, tension escalates, and the fight becomes must-see television regardless of his authentic beliefs.
When he sees him, it's gonna be all like, yeah, listen, I just want to fight. I bet in the press conference, that's the most we're probably gonna get from him. I can see him being very respectful every time he runs into Khamzat fight week, but when the press conference comes, I can see him turning up all of a sudden like, people don't understand something. Sean Strickland's not hard to actually take down. He's hard to hold down when he's going against mediocre people. Now, Usman was the only one in recent memory who's able to hold him down and like spank him. The fact that Strickland's not necessarily hard to take down, going against Khamzat, who will take you down very easily. But Khamzat's actually good at holding people down and like using people's leverage against them. Like if you guys rewatch the Robert Whittaker fight, Khamzat mowed through him pretty easily.
Technical analysis reveals Strickland's grappling vulnerabilities comprehensively, specifically stating something that might surprise casual observers. He's not particularly difficult to take down, but proves challenging to keep down against mediocre competition, fighters lacking elite-level grappling credentials. The comparison to fighters like Usman and Chimaev, who excel at maintaining control once achieving takedowns, reinforces the inferior fighter narrative from a grappling perspective against elite competition. While Strickland might recover against lesser opponents without world-class grappling credentials, Chimaev's unique strength and technique combination, his ability to not just achieve takedowns but maintain them while inflicting punishment, completely negates that advantage. This expert insight validates the technical foundation behind insults and trash talk, making the inferior fighter claim more than empty promotional words rooted in actual fight analysis and specific matchup understanding.
And Strickland does have solid wrestling fundamentals. You always see him in the wrestling outfit. He's always had good grappling in his career. He's taken down guys like Amavov. When people take down Strickland, he gets right back up. Like he does. He gets right back up to his feet. Or they don't take him down in the first place. But he always immediately works to a better position. And he has that ability in him. So it'll be interesting to see. This would be an amazing win for Chimaev if he can get it. But if he can't finish Strickland...
Contradicting earlier wrestling critiques, this perspective champions Strickland's defensive grappling significantly, highlighting solid wrestling fundamentals people tend to forget, and his ability to immediately return to feet or work toward better positions after being taken down. This directly challenges the blanket inferior fighter label, testifying to his resilience and ground intelligence, suggesting simply achieving takedowns won't conclude the story for Chimaev. This viewpoint builds genuine fight suspense, pitting Chimaev's undeniable takedown ability against Strickland's proven escape and scrambling skills, creating a compelling clash where single mistakes from either side could prove monumental. If Chimaev shoots for a takedown and Strickland sprawls perfectly, ending up on top, that could completely alter fight trajectory and shift all momentum. This exemplifies MMA's unpredictability and excitement, where success isn't determined by paper superiority but moment of truth execution when everything hangs in the balance.
It's very compelling. I'm leaning towards Chimaev right now, but I could be swayed, but it's a great main event. The press conference is going to be crazy. Like, here's a fucking thing, you guys. We couldn't have this fucking terrorist at the White House. I'm going to have to do it for you fucking guys. He's going to be going crazy, standing up. USA, baby. He's going to be screaming at the top of his lungs. He's won the fan base back over after his Anthony Hernandez win, especially by TKO as well. Chimaev's going to be getting rage baited. If you thought him slamming the desk...
This segment provides pure insight into exactly how Strickland made things personal. The content that generates headlines and viral moments through vivid imagination of Strickland screaming USA baby and calling Chimaev a fucking terrorist during press conferences, directly in front of media and cameras. This transcends fight competition into winning specific fan bases through highly inflammatory, nationalistic rhetoric designed to resonate with particular audiences. Strickland's calculated rage-baiting targets Chimaev on deeply personal, cultural, and religious levels far beyond typical trash talk, beyond standard "you're striking sucks" or "I'm going to knock you out" material. It demonstrates Strickland's willingness to cross lines most fighters avoid, knowing this generates massive hype, creates controversy, and makes build-ups absolutely explosive. This represents personal feud manufacturing and amplification for public consumption, where the goal involves making people emotionally invested enough that they must watch the fight, whether supporting Strickland or desperately wanting to see Chimaev silence him.
Of the press conference after Gilbert Burns was mocking the way he was speaking, was him losing it and being a little bit flustered in the build-up. I actually am going to make a prediction that at the press conference, we're going to see Chimaev storm across the cage or storm across the stage and try and throw blows at Sean Strickland. Like, that's the way I see this happening. This build-up, if Strickland's going to say the shit he's been saying, we're going to see a backstage fight.
Predictions of Chima storming the stage and attempting to throw legitimate punches at Strickland if he continues his current rhetoric truly captures the peak of making things personal, elevating this beyond normal promotional boundaries. This isn't about cage fighting anymore, under controlled circumstances with rules and regulations, but the genuine possibility of physical altercation before gloves are worn, before they're officially supposed to fight. Commentary suggests Strickland's extreme rhetoric, particularly those terrorist comments we've discussed, proves so provocative and crosses so many boundaries that it could push Chima past his breaking point, transforming supposed pre-fight banter into genuine dangerous animosity that can't be contained. This establishes a terrifyingly captivating build-up scenario where talk and actual violence boundaries blur completely, security teams remain on high alert, and every press conference and face-off becomes a potential powder keg ready to explode. This tension makes people tune in, creates water cooler conversations, and ultimately sells pay-per-views because nobody wants to miss what might happen next.